The purpose of this podcast is to educate our listeners, and it does not constitute professional advice or services. The legal areas, services, law and process discussed are relevant at the time of recording, and it is important that you seek independent legal advice on such topics to ensure that the law has not changed or been updated in relation to the area of law you need advice on or are interested in.
Court is in session.
Welcome back to Lawyers Who Lunch. Today we have quite an exciting episode. We are joined by Phil Coleman, who has come from NAC to talk about child contact centres. So, nice to see you, Phil.
Hello, nice to be here. Thank you for having me.
It's okay. Do you want to tell us a bit about yourself before we start?
Yeah, let's do that.
I think you're going to lead the questions, aren't you, today? Yeah.
Awesome. So I'm Phil. I'm a social worker by trade. I have many different hats, which I try not to bore people with today, but I work for the National Association of Child Contact Centres. I am a trustee for the Family Services Foundation, and I hold different roles at the NSPCC through their Childline service.
Wow. Busy man. And yeah, he is a busy man, absolutely.
Yeah. So we're going to be focusing on child contact centres, because obviously it's Child Contact Centre Week. We're looking into everything to do with child contact centres, the support they offer, the help that they give separated parents and families. And we just wanted to talk to you about kind of the role of NAC in particular and what contact centres are. So for the listeners who may not know, what exactly is a child contact centre?
Okay, in its most basic form, a contact centre is a place where children spend time with parents or other loved ones that they don't usually live with. That can happen for two kind of primary reasons. Divorce and separation is a common reason why children might see their parents at contact centres. The other reason is that the state have intervened because of safeguarding concerns. The children live away from their parents for safeguarding investigation or for their own safety, and then they go to a contact centre to see their parents there.
So what does your role and what does NAC as a whole, what's the sort of the role they play in accrediting these contact centres and supporting them?
Yeah, so in the UK there is almost no regulation of child contact centres, and that means that anybody can open up a child contact centre in their lounge, in their living room, whatever they want to do. When I say anybody, I'm talking about domestic abuse perpetrators and paedophiles as well, because there's no safety net there to stop that from happening. So the National Association of Child Contact Centres is a charitable organisation that has a set of standards. We have a framework of support, we have membership support, training and various other activities. And our core mission really is about ensuring that when children and vulnerable families use child contact centres, these are safe and appropriate places where everybody is working to a decent standard, where families are getting outcomes. Ultimately, we don't want children using contact centres for long periods of time, so we need to ensure that the people who make up the NAC network know how to achieve that in a way that's sustainable for families.
Do you get many people that you don't accredit?
Yes. So accreditation, the people who choose to be accredited with NAC, choose is an important word there, there's nothing to make them. They choose to go through our system. We have an accreditation process which can take up to 6 months long. It's really rigorous for very obvious reasons. It involves a portfolio, it involves an inspection and various other things along the way.
It's tough.
It is tough indeed, and it should be, right? We're trying to keep the most vulnerable people in our society safe. We have people sign up for accreditation and you wonder about their motivation sometimes. You go out to visit them or you ask for the portfolio and they haven't given full time and preparation to the resources that they've put together, almost as though they hadn't expected it to be as rigorous as it is. We are really keen on people not failing the process. We are a nurturing organisation. We'll support you to achieve our standards, but ultimately we're supporting you. It's you that has to do the work. It's you that's going to be working with those vulnerable families. So we do have people who apply who just don't meet the standards and can't get through the process. We have people who have met the standards in the past who no longer meet the standards, and we kind of have to ask them not to be members anymore and remove their membership from them.
Wow.
It happens quite rarely, but safeguarding children and vulnerable families will always come first. And if we can't support somebody to meet our standards, then we have very limited options after that, really.
Oh yeah, I know firsthand how rigorous that process is. I'm just actually doing my re-accreditation now, and that's a lengthy process.
And some people might argue it's my fault, because ultimately my
Yes.
job is about designing that accreditation process and the standards that underpin it. So,
But you are right, it is important, isn't it, realistically,
course
that
it
we
is.
have them, because we were talking about this the other day, weren't we? That local. Did you ask me what do
Yeah,
local
so
authorities do because they
That's
don't have
actually,
an
yeah, 'cause
accreditation?
social services centres
yeah.
obviously don't get accredited, do they? So
Who's regulating them? Yeah.
why should they be trusted?
It's a great question, isn't it?
Yeah. We had a
Um,
quite big discussion about
We
it,
had
didn't
it
we?
quite,
Yeah.
yeah. Because they could apply to you to be accredited,
They-
realistically,
and some
couldn't
do.
they?
Yeah, we have some accredited local authorities. It happens most commonly when they want to commercialise their service. So
Okay.
if they want to charge private families to use their service,
Yeah.
or if they want to bid for a CAFCAS tender.
Yeah.
So that's when it happens most commonly, when the
Yeah.
local authority want to make money from their contact service, which
I don't
we're not
blame them,
against
to
at
be
all,
honest.
because
Yeah.
if they local authority contact centres may well predominantly work office hours, and
Right.
it's a great resource. The majority of the NAC network works outside of those office hours. The families are most available evenings and weekends.
Yeah.
So why would you have such an amazing resource closed and locked up when families are available and able to use them?
Yeah, and I suppose, forgive me if I'm answering some of the questions you've prepared. As a credit, do you find it's becoming more popular, thinking from our world? Because a lot of our court orders are saying now that if you're going to use a centre, it's got to be an accredited centre that is getting used. So is it becoming more popular that people are getting accredited, or?
Slowly, it probably is.
Okay.
If you look at the NAC statistics, we had quite a big drop in memberships accreditations on the run up to COVID, but especially during COVID.
Yeah.
This year we have topped 300 members, so 300 individual services around the
Wow.
country, and that's a significant increase from COVID time. So we're not back to where we were, but
Yeah.
yes, things are definitely picking up.
Okay.
What that hides is the balance of services that we have,
Yeah.
because there are supported contact centres and supervised contact centres. For our audience who might not be aware, a supported contact centre is often run by volunteers, very often in church halls. They don't provide supervision, they don't write observation reports, but they do provide a safe space for families to come together. Whereas a supervised contact centre is a service that's run by professional people. They are within sight and sound of the children at all times. They are writing observation reports, and those reports very often are going to be used by lawyers, CAFCAS, social workers, the courts, and various others to make decisions that, good or bad, are going to have a huge impact on that child and the rest of their life. So these supervised centres, they're working with a much higher level of risk and complexity in terms of the families who come through their doors, but the outcomes are of a different level too, because whilst the contact centre might not directly make decisions about the family's future for a lot of families that they work with, the information that they put together will be used in that way. It potentially will have that impact.
So, why are child contact centres such an important part of the family justice system
Yeah.
and within like family law?
Yeah. Child contact in the professional kind of forum. So we're talking a lot about child contact centres here, and that is 90% of what NAC does and 90% of what our members do. But there's a growing trend around people who are providing child contact in the community settings. So they're getting accredited as a community-based service where the staff are providing services in soft play in the park, in the library, in a bowling alley or the cinema. So those contact sessions are happening kind of out and about rather than in your traditional contact room, which is great in many ways because it means the children have a much more natural experience of spending time with their parents. It's never going to be perfect, and however great a contact centre is, it's always going to be a fake environment. And that's why earlier on I was talking about moving families on from that. We want these children to grow up, and the amount of time they're at a contact centre was so insignificant that they don't remember it. It's not a part of their lives once they've kind of grown up and moved on. That's not possible for some children, but it does happen for others. Coming back to your question, I think that these professional environments, they are important, but only for those most complex of families. Most families, we want them to keep away from a contact centre. If contact needs to happen, then why can't it be an aunt or an uncle or a trusted neighbour or somebody that's supporting that process? Yeah. So the families we're working with are those families who can't safely achieve those natural outcomes. And that's why contact centres are important. We are providing a safety net that protects children from harm, that ensures their basic needs are met, that enables them to spend time with their loved ones in a kind of cool, exciting, safe way. But equally to be able to move on from that into that kind of safe environment. So I guess the other part of what makes them important is the fact that at supervised centres, even at supported actually, at supervised centres you have professionals who are very experienced in working with disguised compliance, coercive control, domestic abuse, all kinds of different things. They will see the nuances, they can use their skills to protect children, but ultimately they're spending more time with these families than most other professionals will. A CAFCAS officer, a lawyer, a judge, they won't have seen this family in the way that they interact as a family group together, whereas a contact centre does that. Yeah. And writing those reports, recording those observations, when they're used well, they can give those professionals a really good insight into what might happen for that family when they're not at a contact centre.
Yeah.
We recognise it's a fake environment a lot of the time. Even in the community, there's still a professional following this family round.
Absolutely.
It's still a fake environment, but it gives a better insight than not doing it at all.
Yeah, they're learning to cross the road, aren't they? So for those who don't know, I also run a contact centre also here in Brecon, and that's where you started your career actually, wasn't it? You started with me in work experience there, and you've kind of blossomed as we've grown. We prefer community contact, don't we? Yeah. But because of what you said, in that yes, okay, we're still there watching and monitoring, but it does provide that more natural environment for children, but it also allows you to, like I said, how are you going to cross the road? What are you going to do if one child goes that way and the other child goes? How are you going to manage that?
Absolutely.
And we can provide that evidence back. Like I said, like a strongly written report can really like help pave the way. And some parents aren't actually ready to move out of that. I think we've experienced that, haven't we? Where actually, and the children aren't sometimes either. They're not ready to be left with their parent
100%.
Without someone being there. So I do think we play like a really key role in the justice system. But I think what we were talking about this as well the other day was we don't get called up enough. So they're relying on our notes, and we're so heavily, you going back to saying we're so heavily involved with these families. Like some of them, like we've had a family in with us for a year now, and we've got to know them really well. They're doing that, and we know that they've got a hearing coming up, but we have not been asked to attend that hearing. Yeah. Which is utterly, as my head as a lawyer, is utterly completely ridiculous that you've got this expert that has been, because that's what they are realistically, because your standards are quite high in who's allowed to supervise, and you don't get called up to come and actually discuss, which I just think we're missing that bit in the family.
Communication is a really interesting theme throughout the work that contact centres do with social workers, with the family courts, with all kinds of agencies. Yeah. And an intriguing example of that is that it's really normal for a court and the legal experts who work in the court to make an order for a family to use a contact centre. Yeah. to specify which contact centre it's going to be, to
Without
specify
checking that there's
that's
any
where I'm
availability.
working toward, to specify the start date, the end date, how they're going to move on.
Yeah.
But not at any point does anybody think to have a conversation with the contact centre. And if you were to ring the contact centre before writing the order, they're the experts in this. Give them a kind of hypothetical scenario, they can draw you up a plan. And that plan then can be tailored to your individual family, the individual nuances, complexities, circumstances of the people you're working with. That family are much more likely to achieve that.
I think it has really changed my work as a lawyer, having obviously, so before I ran a contact centre, I was a solicitor beforehand anyhow, went on maternity leave and decided that's what I was going to do, because I was sick of my clients having to go here, there and everywhere to get, and I was like, right, let's just build one here. Let's say, we met them in the middle. But having now had that practice, and I think you would agree with me, haven't we, how we've seen how like the file reviews and checking where the progression, it's really helped us now as lawyers go, this is not going to work.
Yeah.
This is absolutely not going to work. This is not a case that needs to be doing this long term. It should be this. And like we've been able to go to court then, haven't we, and gone, this needs to be the progression. This is an idea. And we've actually gone forward with it, which has actually helped clients and helped almost stop the process being as long as it needed to be. I'm trying to think of the word, elongate. Is that the right word?
Yeah, because with
that's the right word.
with a lot of our families as well, it's very much, a lot of them are like just toxic parent situations where it's just a constant tit for tat and a constant, and these kids are stuck in the middle.
Absolutely.
So it takes for a contact centre for the professionals to go, right, no, enough's enough.
Yeah.
You can move out, here's how to do it.
Yeah.
And I think if it wasn't for that sort of professional saying that, they'd be stuck in the court constantly and they wouldn't get through.
Oh my god, yeah, you imagine the amount of people that would be going, right, we've back to court because we can't agree this, we can't have been able to do that. Yeah, it'd be horrendous.
And ultimately that's the bread and butter of our work, isn't it? It's about supporting these people to communicate in such a way that they are able to recognise their children's needs and put those needs first.
Yeah.
They might never be friends again, and that's cool, but they both love their children most of the time.
Absolutely.
They both want the best for their children, and they're going to need to be able to communicate to do that. Otherwise, there's going to become a day when sports day happens, when weddings happen, when funerals happen, when birthday parties happen, and both of these parents are going to want to be in the same room as their child. But imagine the stinking great atmosphere that's going to exist if nobody unpicks this kind of spider web of complexity that's built up as a result of their separation and whatever led to that separation.
And it always comes down to sometimes, I think we've had a parent bring this up, is that the parents who separated, or like care proceedings, I think it was brought up in, they don't get enough support themselves as parents on how to cope with this new way of life. How can we do that? Because like you said, a lot of the people that are using centres have come from quite serious safeguarding.
Absolutely.
Like you've got to be in quite a serious point that you're with us for whatever reason that may be, and we're then asking you to like potentially try and be friends with your perpetrator of domestic abuse, for instance, you know, and that takes a lot to ask a parent to do that. But it goes back to your point, at some point you potentially are going to be in the room where your daughter's getting married. I say your daughter typically, but like, you know, your child's getting married, or you've got a graduation, all these things that are going to happen. So we've got to try and all work together to move that forward. I know it's my turn to ask a question, but whilst we're on the topic of the family law justice system, I'm going to ask Phil this question about this, because I know you wrote a report about what I'm about to ask you. So the family law justice system is potentially about to have a big change. Well, it's been confirmed it is when it will get introduced. It's a whole other new thing. Is about the presumption that children have the right to see their family. That has now been changed by the government, and they're removing it essentially. What do you think that will have as an impact on families or centres maybe being even used? Do you think it's going to make things worse, or where do you sit with that?
I find it all really interesting because the law before they changed it had safeguards and mechanisms.
Yeah.
The law after they've changed it will have safeguards and mechanisms.
Yeah.
So we are changing language, but hopefully children will be as safe or safer as they've always been.
Yeah.
My concerns about the presumption and changing the presumption. I do have concerns about when changes have happened in the past, that's led to families having less support, and with that becomes less awareness, less signposting, less knowledge of how to access help. And a contact centre is a great example of that. Nobody ever has heard of a contact centre until they've separated.
Yeah.
And if you don't know that they exist, how do you know the safety they can provide?
Yeah.
So there's loads of challenges around that. The difficulty that I have with the presumption isn't really about courts or the legal system. It's about the knowledge that professionals outside of that system will have. So if you think about teachers, health visitors, midwives, youth workers, all of those type of professionals who will spend much more time with families, at the moment their knowledge of the law, the system so to speak, is that where it's safe and appropriate, it is best that a child has a relationship with both parents, because that's what our current system underpins.
Yeah.
By removing that underpinning, you're removing that level of knowledge potentially for those professionals, because now they don't have, whilst their understanding of the law and the legal system might always have been basic, there was a starting point that it is best for children to have a relationship with both parents, and that starting point is going to be removed. And that's what worries me. What message will those teachers and youth workers and all the professionals I just mentioned, who are probably providing much more support to these families than we ever will, because the work that they do means they never get to us, what will that look like in the future? And what messages will children and families receive?
Yeah.
And we know, I mean, don't ask me to be too specific about this because my knowledge on research isn't amazing, but we know that there is research that says having safe and predictable relationships is in children's best interests. We know that there's research that says parents who can communicate raise children with a higher level of self-esteem, emotional well-being, academic achievement, emotional intelligence. So the risks of taking that stuff away, it might be that it takes us 10 or 20 years for those children to grow up to see what the impact of that is.
Yeah.
But I don't understand why we live in a society that takes those gambles when we know what the research says, when we know.
And we've got a system that works, don't we? Like, we know how. If you are in a situation you need to see a child, we've got, you know, you make a C100 application, we're going to court, it gets checked by CAFCAS or the local authority there. You're not left alone to like get it sorted, are you? Because my biggest concern with that, and I don't know, it'd be interesting where you stand on it actually, I don't think we've ever talked about it, is I'm concerned it's going to be used as a weapon by parents that go, well, actually, they, despite, like you said, all the research that we have, and there is research that definitely says that it supports that children should have, and you did ACEs and stuff, didn't you, in your Welsh back? That the parents, and I'm going to say, and again, I'm going to be a bit controversial here, I'm going to say typically mums, because it is, factually as well, actually, typically that is the situation that we live in, that they're going to go, well, actually they don't have any right to see you, and I just have this awful feeling that we're going to start seeing a world where they go, nope, yank kids away, and it's just going to make situations worse for, again, in this scenario, dads, because that's who I'm talking about typically, but again, that's not to say that doesn't happen the other way around, just make that clear.
If we go all the way back to kind of where the presumption started, it was a theory around the courts prioritising contact at all costs, and that being harmful to children in domestic abuse cases. It was referred to as a contact culture. Now, I'm not going to say that that was or wasn't happening and that that was or wasn't harmful, but what I do know is that there are checks, there are balances, there are things in the system that are designed to protect. Things will go wrong, and typically, let's kind of put it out there on the table, typically, statistically, men are abusers and women are victims of that abuse. That creates a really difficult world for those men who are victims, because we live in a society where male victims of domestic abuse are invisible, and there are very, very few, if any, services available to them.
No. And they don't come forward. I find men have this real, and forgive me both because there are actually two men in this room, but men are almost, they take it on their chin very much, like, oh, I'm a man, I can't possibly be like beaten up by a woman.
Where would you go?
A good question.
The police aren't. If it's your word against your partner's,
Yeah.
are the police going to take my word?
I would genuinely, in today's society, probably not, but that's just my opinion.
And then, if you were a male victim of domestic abuse, there are charities out there.
Not
but
as many as the
would you
women's,
know
though.
that there are?
No.
Would you be able to find them? And how much confidence would it take for a male who has experienced all of that to be able to reach out to a professional and say, please help me, this is what I've been through, please, I need your support. I think that the challenges there are huge.
Yeah, I think it's going to create quite a scary world for a little while. I really do. I was going to ask, talking of male, someone told me the other day, you saying about men getting support, it's either Women's Aid or West Mercia Women's Aid have now started to take on men. Or like support. That could be completely incorrect, so I don't want to rely on that information. I haven't fact checked it before, but I got told by someone, I'm trying to think who it was, have started now to take on men because it's becoming more common that men are actually now starting to report domestic abuse.
There are male domestic abuse charities out there, and they're doing a phenomenal job. Much like anything else, I guess they're going to struggle with funding, with awareness, and the movement behind protecting females from domestic abuse is huge. It's very well structured, it's well funded, it's well established, it's embedded within the system. So how does the little brother of that, the men's domestic abuse charities, how do they have their voice heard in what can sometimes become a really toxic, really difficult discussion? Because like I said, men are perpetrators, they're not victims.
It's me now. We've had enough talk about the family justice system, haven't we? Okay, so this is possibly more to do with your work with separated families.
Okay.
Of what are some of the biggest challenges children face during family separation?
It's being heard. I'm utterly convinced of that. It's children. If you think about what a child experiences during separation, they go from quite a stable environment at first, two parents living together, their siblings living together, and then things break down and it becomes quite unhealthy. The relationship comes to an end. By the time that happens, that probably is the right thing for those children. Doesn't mean it's not really hard. Their whole life gets changed by that decision for a relationship to come to an end. And when I kind of say that, it's easy to accept those words and not think about what that means. But what that means is less money in the household. Maybe they don't live with their pet anymore. Maybe their siblings are living in a different place to them. Maybe they're living in two homes. Maybe they have two bedrooms. Maybe they have two mums or two dads. Their whole world changes. We live in a society that doesn't communicate that. You don't see that in cartoons. You don't see it. I mean, kids probably nowadays aren't watching that many cartoons. They're probably on YouTube or TikTok or somewhere much cooler than TV. But they're probably not seeing it there either. And I would put money on it that they're not talking about it in the school playground. So this life-changing thing is happening in their world. And I don't know how they could feel other than alien, because people aren't talking about it. They're not normalising it.
Yeah.
So if that's the situation they're in, then how are they supposed to talk about their thoughts and feelings? And who are they supposed to talk about that to?
Yeah.
They very often won't talk to their parents about it, either because their parents are in a really difficult place emotionally, or very often children want to protect their parents. They will mask their own difficulties from their parents because they know that their parents are going through a hard time and they don't want to cause more hurt for their parents. It puts children in a really difficult situation. I think that we need to find a way of normalising conversation around healthy relationships ending, the fact that change is really difficult and really scary, but things will get better. There is help and support there for you, and just making it acceptable to talk about these things, because if we don't open up these conversations, it must be impossibly difficult for children to access support, and that really bothers me. So the point I was trying to make was that we need to open up those conversations in order to be able to listen to children, to be able to listen to their worries, to be able to listen to their hopes for the future. Because once they've got used to the idea that their parents don't live together, they very often can give very sensible and very rational ideas about the future, about what they would like, about how they would like to spend their time with their parents, about what they don't want to do and what scares them, and what they kind of want to keep away from. And we could work with children and young people in a really kind of trauma-informed way by opening up that space. In social work, we say that the child's voice is front and centre of kind of everything we do, and it is, and it should be. But we could do so much more. We could hear the voices of children and young people, and we could meaningfully act on it. Not just highlight it in a case file so the voice of the child stands out and it looks good. We could meaningfully act upon their voices, their wishes and feelings. We could give them feedback about what we've done. We could make ourselves accountable. And then as you do that, children begin to feel heard, listened to, valued. A whole load of things happen which breaks down the barriers around those conversations.
Thinking of that, as obviously, again, we know that as well. Like that's what the Children Act kind of pins upon, isn't it? It's the wishes and feelings of the child need to be heard. Do you think more could be done in the family law kind of world to get that sorted sooner? Because obviously, in what we do, you might not see that. Me as a lawyer now, I won't see that, what the child's wishes and feelings are, until I get a CAFCAS report that tells me what they are. I won't get that potentially off until the local authority come in, whereas kind of in the contact centre environment, children tell you that in like the pre-visit, they tell you as you're watching, so you kind of have that more from the beginning, don't you? Do you think, like, I don't know, maybe the system needs to change for lawyers, that we need to be getting children's voices heard almost immediately rather than relying on a parent?
Yes, but I don't know how you achieve that.
No, I agree.
Because there are challenges around that. Children will say the narrative that they think they're supposed to say. They will act up to the situation that they're in to make their lives easier once they go back to mum's house, for example. So contact centres is a really good place to do that, as are schools, because these people are building trusting relationships with these children where these conversations can take place. I think the voice of children needs to be able to get to the court in one way, shape or form. It's not for me to sit here and talk about of CAFCAS, but I hear often that children will meet an FCA once and then a Section 7 report is written. And that doesn't... We might be ticking that box to say we're putting their voice front and centre, but are we? Is that really the best we can do? A whole court case is about to happen that's going to decide their lives, and an FCA spent an hour with them and got them to colour in the free houses activity.
And we got a paragraph in a report about what their wishes and feelings
doesn't feel great.
No, I agree.
I think there's a long way we could move forward to get their voices in a meaningful way, to understand their lived experiences, and for that to have a realistic impact in terms of the decisions that lawyers, courts, social workers, CAFCAS, that we're all making to improve outcomes for these families.
Because we try, don't we, to get support from the beginning in the contact centre, like with the pre-visit and reassure children, you know, we've got the little leaflets and stuff for them and that, but we've gone above, and we've tried to do it in here, haven't we? We've gone out of the way to try and support parents, haven't we, to help their children go, because we're often asked, what do I tell my child? So you found a lovely box, didn't you, in the bookshop from Hereford, didn't you, of like parents separating. So we've kind of got them dotted around, haven't we, to try and like help parents have that signposting. And we've got the wishes and feelings board, haven't we, in Brecon. We haven't got any in Hereford, have we? So that we're trying, aren't we, to find out what that is.
If I'd been prepared, I could have brought a prop with me. There's an author that NAC worked with a couple of years ago, a young lady called Circle Yen. She went through divorce and separation in China, then came over to the UK and she lived what you've just said.
Yeah.
There was no resources, there was no support. She desperately wanted to support her child to understand what was going on, and that didn't exist. She wrote a story called Our Dance, which talks through the story of divorce, separation and change for children and young people through the medium of dance. It's a beautiful story.
Wow.
She's an Oxford MA arts graduate.
Wow.
So the illustrations in this book are immense.
Has she done them herself as well?
Yeah.
Oh, wow, incredible.
But it's a really lovely story that talks children and young people through that process and normalises some of that stuff.
We'll have to get that.
But there's loads of them. There's
there are.
Mum and Dad Glue is amazing.
Yeah. Well, I showed you one the other day. I can't remember what it was called now, but I went, oh my God, my mum gave me this when my parents separated and was like, I can't believe this book still exists.
Absolutely.
But yeah, because I remember having to go when my mum and dad separated to play therapy, and they did the whole her like, you know, the dolls' houses and this is this and this is what, because I didn't get it. I was 5. I didn't. My whole world had been turned upside down.
Of course it had.
Completely.
Everything you knew.
Yeah.
And at the risk of a shameless plug, when we redesigned the NAC website, we redesigned it with the Family Justice Young People's Board, which are a group of young people who work with Kafkas. We did that very deliberately because we wanted to design the website around children and have adults as the afterthought, which is what I'm passionately sure most other organisations do, the opposite way around.
Yeah.
The outcome of that is that we have some really cool resources for children. There's a children's part of our website with stories, with activities, with like breakout kind of threads that seek to normalise feelings and emotions and fear. But there's also information about rights, wishes and feelings. And obviously we're a charity that works with contact centres, so there's information about what children can expect at contact centres, about what their rights are, about what support they'll get. For children and young people, if they access our website using Google Chrome, in the address bar at the top there's a tiny little download button. By clicking that download button, only the children's web pages, not the whole website, just the children's web pages will appear on the home screen of their device as though it's an app.
Okay.
Now the benefit of that is that if their internet goes off, maybe it's bedtime, they're supposed to be asleep, but instead of that they're worrying about contact or separation or whatever it may be. Now they've got safe and reliable information on their phone about the things that are going on in their lives that they, because children's imaginations run away with them. The demons under their bed are always much bigger than reality. So if we can give them reality at the time of day when we want them to be asleep, calm and resting, then maybe that will help them. And I wish we had the resources to do a proper app. We don't at the moment.
They cost so much money though, don't they?
Tens of thousands.
Yeah, they're a joke.
But we have this web app, and if we get that message out there...
It's a start though, you're in the step in the right direction, isn't it? Absolutely.
If we get that message out there, then children have those
I think
safe messages.
People forget in this process that children are quite often victims in their own rights of what's going on. And I wouldn't say they get ignored, but they get forgotten about quite possibly along the way.
Yeah. And the law says that they're victims in terms of domestic abuse. But what about every other case that exists? I mean, parents separate all the time. Not all separations are to do with abuse.
No.
Children are still victims. Children still go through trauma. They still go through a whole load of really complex emotions.
Absolutely.
And there are resources out there, but people don't know. Is the core message.
I think they don't at all. And then I think like you said, going back to a contact centre, when I tell people that I have one, they go, "What, like a call centre?" And I'm like, no, like not at all, because they just don't understand what the role is. But leading on to like children and the family separation, how do you think supervised or supported contacts actually help children maintain these healthy relationships with their parent?
So sometimes it's about the very practical things that we do. So having a kind of safe environment that people can come to that is neutral ground. It's not dad's house, dad's family, or mom's house, mom's family. It's somewhere in between all of that. By having calm professionals who are not emotionally involved, and you touched on it earlier, you spoke about pre-visits and how they prepare children for contact. But that's a really important stepping stone. And a contact centre that does a pre-visit well will really get to know that child in that time. They'll get to know about their worries, their anxieties, the comforter or the favourite toy that they want to bring with them. And the reason I kind of went off on this tangent is because that pre-visit can be used as an opportunity to agree kind of safety words or safety phrases or safety gestures. What I mean by that is that children can have a way of communicating discomfort or distress to the staff so that the staff can support them through that situation. Now, that support might be that the child is invited to go to the bathroom or something, or that the child is taken out of the room so that the staff can talk to them, or that the parent is asked to leave the room so that the staff can talk to them and find out what their needs are and give them the support that they need. The contact centres are set up around hearing those voices and supporting those families to move forward. So there will be regular reviews. Children should play an active part in reviews. I'm not necessarily saying they're going to sit in a review meeting because that's boring and most children wouldn't want to do that. But there's no reason at all why they can't know that a review meeting is going to take place and why they can't offer input, thoughts and ideas about that. Because if you're sat with, or very often you're not sat with because the parents aren't, it's not possible for them to sit like this in a review meeting. A review meeting is often a contact centre acting as a mediator, passing messages back and forth until we come to an agreement. But if you're able to get the voice of the child in that, it goes back to what I said before, these people, no matter how difficult their feelings are towards each other, they do both love their children.
They do, and I think actually from our experience, most parents are willing to listen to what their children are saying.
Absolutely.
Because it does become quite a common theme, isn't it? The children start saying, I want to see more, or they're refusing to leave, or we can't get them out, or so I think we personally do that quite well at our centre. I don't want to blow our own trumpet, but you are right in that it is a really important thing what we do.
Absolutely.
I think it's going back to what we were saying about the importance of contact centres as well. It's so important in building that relationship with the child, and there's a consistent professional that can recognise all these cues and stuff and have that trust and become that safety person for that child.
You've had to have training to do that role.
Exactly,
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And we have the tools available to us to help these people to move forward. So I'm thinking about parenting plans, for example. A really simple way of helping two parents to plan for the future, to learn to communicate in a child-centred way, and to learn to put the needs of their children first and to think about how they're going to do that as a team. Now, there's loads of parenting plans out there. You can Google parenting plan and find one quite easily. But finding the one that fits for your family, for your client, for the situation that you're in, is what's most important. NAC has one. We designed it with our friends and colleagues over at Our Family Wizard, and we worked really hard to make sure it was child-centred. There's a voice of the child in there, various other things. But CAFCAS have one. I hear that the MOJ are designing one, and there are other versions available as well. So, yes.
Yeah, I've made my own one.
Yeah. And I'm here with NAC written on my shirt, so the NAC one is obviously the best.
Yeah.
But there are loads out there, and recognising the individual needs of your families and how those plans might meet them is really important if we're going to have the impact we want to have.
Yeah, absolutely. So this kind of probably leads on to like the next question of what misconceptions do people often have about contact centres? I think we've kind of touched on the people don't know they exist.
Yeah.
Or what they are. Like I said, people think I'm a call centre, not a what misconceptions do you think people have?
The worst one, and the one that I've spent my whole career trying to unpick, it probably comes from the 80s or maybe even before that, but it's this idea that contact centres are damp, dark, cold, dingy church halls. And they're not. They're not. I travel up and down the country seeing contact centres, and by and large I'm overwhelmed at the quality not only of the staff in these places, but the resources that are available to families as well. And the Find a Centre tool on the NAC website means that people can shop around. There are enough contact centres in most areas. It might be difficult in Cumbria or Norfolk, but in most areas it is possible to shop around and find a contact centre where you feel comfortable, where you think your needs are going to be met. There's a description of what the centre does and what it's about on the Find a Centre tool. There's some photos, but that in reality, that Find a Centre tool gets 400,000 web hits a year. That is far and away the most popular used page on our website.
Yeah.
But that then acts as a launch pad because you've got the links to those individual contact centres.
Yeah.
So you can then go to their websites and kind of carry on that learning journey.
Yeah.
What's one misconception you have, being the owner of one?
What the
Or
people
that
see.
people have, yeah.
I think I had the same actually with what Phil. I think I've said this to you. Whenever I thought of contact centres and what I knew of them, they were these. Or I've known a few that had like bright blue walls or like bright, like awful, like not somewhere you'd want to take a child. But people are kind of that's changing, and people are genuinely. I think I've been to a few. I'll help you with accreditations. They're trying to create these nice environments and play. Like I always say to you, I want it to be a home from home. If we can do that with ours, I think another one is that I think people they don't think you're there to help.
Yeah.
I think they think you're there to just make money, and you're there to like. But actually, you're quite a vital stepping stone, and hopefully progressing them to that next stage where they're not with you anymore. Like we've got quite a good success story this year where they were with us a long time, but they're out now and having regular contact. It took time, but they're there. But you think about their attitude of when they first came in to what they're now, it's quite. It's a story I'm very proud of anyway.
Contact centres are full on kind of Nanny McPhee syndrome, aren't they? When these people come to us, they hate us. They don't want to be there.
Yeah.
They've got these preconceptions of what it's going to be.
Yeah.
They feel really uncomfortable. They hate everything about it. By the time it's time to leave and they've got everything they need and we're ready to wave them off, they quite like us now. They feel safe and they don't want to go.
No, and I actually think it's a really big thing, isn't it, to kind of do create that like home from home feel, like get to know, like you said, use that pre-visit to get to know the parents, get to know what their worries are, get to know the child, get to like, because we always make sure we know what toys they like, don't we? Like that's a really big one for us, is like, what do you like? So that we can make sure that they've got what they like and it's a comfortable experience for them when they're there, because it does need to be that safe space. And I've always said this to you, haven't I, is our centre needs to be a safe place and that child needs to know that they can come back to it and it'd be okay. And I would rather withdraw my time if contact was, and I have done, we've withdrawn on a couple of families, haven't we? But if that child then needed to come back, they know that they can do so safely.
And there's an important message in that, isn't it, about contact centres have a moral duty to recognise when contact is not right for a child.
Yeah.
Even if other professionals, if the court have ordered for contact to take place, but a contact centre can see that contact is emotionally harmful, they have a duty to that child before anybody else to ensure that we're not undertaking activities which have the potential to be emotionally harmful.
And I think we forget as well that children have learnt to like either please their parent or learn how to mask their own pain, and actually having that minute with them, you learn a lot. Where we had a virtual contact, didn't we? And we learnt that the child was only doing it because they were terrified. Yeah. Basically. And I was like, no, this cannot.
That's not what.
That's what it's not here for. I'm not going to force you to have a relationship that you don't.
We're not playing complex adult games.
No, absolutely
that's not what we're about.
No, I agree.
Yeah, and I think that's another misconception people have, is that we're not there for their games. Like, we're not there to please either of them. We're there to make the child safe.
Yeah, and support the child.
Yeah,
absolutely, 100%.
The one thing I always find really interesting is these parents. It happens quite often at contact centres all over the country, but they will drive their children to a contact centre, and then the children are so emotionally distressed that they won't come out the car.
Yeah.
And the staff are encouraged to come to the car to try and help these children into the centre. I don't necessarily have a problem with that happening once or twice. It might work, it might help the children to engage, but it does make you wonder what conversations happen. How did that parent get them into the car but then can't get them out?
Yeah, suddenly how did it all change?
What conversation happened on the way? are those children missing something really exciting by coming to contact?
Are they hearing something that they shouldn't have necessarily been privy
What's
to?
happening?
What's happened? What's happening after?
Yeah.
I completely, because we've got a few, haven't we, that we've gone, ooh, what's going on? And I think the other thing, going back to the parents, and I know we're asking you to do a lot because we don't, we might be asking you to potentially come and sit in the room with your perpetrator of domestic abuse and your child, but it's the only way we can get them through the door and have this relationship that you want them to have. So we're putting you in all quite difficult situations. Absolutely. But actually sometimes you need to not get over it is the wrong word, but like push your feelings aside that you have against this other parent, because I'm not asking you to be best friends, don't want that, but like sometimes you need to squash that.
And the contact centre has planned that activity. They've risk assessed it. They've done it 1,000 times before your family came. Whilst it might feel really scary and really risky for you, the service is really professional at being able to guide you through that in a way that will protect you as a victim of domestic abuse, if that's what you've been through. But it will protect every parent, not just victims and perpetrators. Everybody who comes through, these staff are trained to know what your needs are and to be able to plan around those needs. And most importantly, a good contact centre will be asking you what your worries are, and they'll be telling you what they're going to do to mitigate those worries. They'll be explaining to you why they work the way they do or how they're going to keep your child safe. And that's an important part of not only helping parents to engage with the service, but centres being able to show that they've involved adults and children in the risk assessment process in a meaningful way.
How do you think the demand for the services has changed in recent years?
Since COVID, the statistics on the NAC website show that demand for supported contact has drained away. Even now, kind of, what are we, 3 years post-COVID, 4 years, something like that? The demand for supported contact centres is only at 60% of what it was pre-COVID. Something really interesting happened during that time. The courts closed for a short amount of time, and then there was changes around how hearings were happening and how quickly families were getting through the system. I think that had a huge impact in terms of the level of risk that's now out there in terms of the families. And I think that that's what we see in terms of these court orders, because the numbers of court orders I don't think has changed that significantly in reality. But what we're seeing is that they are now for supervised contact. It seems quite uncommon for them to be for supported contact. That in itself isn't a problem, because supervised centres are able to provide supervised and supported services. The problem that kind of gets created there is that those specialist supported only services, there's becoming less and less of a need for them to exist. And that's a problem because they're the services that are run by volunteers. They're the services in church halls. And that matters because they're the services that people are most able to afford. We haven't talked about it so far, but most contact, other than looked after children, most other types of contact in this country is self-funded. The parents are picking up the bill. And that bill can sometimes be quite significant.
It's huge.
Yeah, absolutely. I've never seen the manager of a contact centre rolling around in a Bentley. I don't believe anybody's getting rich out of this. I don't believe there's anything unethical happening.
I can assure you that that's definitely not happening.
But if I were a parent, even a full-time working parent, if you're having, 2 hours a week, at £100 an hour?
I could tell you, so what do we charge? We charge £70 an hour plus a report. Are we talking about reported or supervised?
Let's go supervised.
Supervised, that will cost you £1,740 at the 25. That's £165 we're asking you for.
A week?
A week.
So you've got to find that times 4 out of a monthly salary.
On top of potentially looking after other children and your life.
And higher life expenses than you had before, because they might have been shared before. Or you might now be paying for 2 homes. It blows my mind that people are able to find that money.
I think people do. I think it's a real, and I don't know if I'm saying this from a parental background, but I think people find it because they want to see their children. Like, I think people who truly want to see their kids will go above and beyond to find. Okay, I'm not asking you to go on like OnlyFans or become a drug lord to find that money, but it's amazing how many people do find it, or they'll ask us to make arrangements where, like, I know that we've got someone who's supposed to be doing weekly contact, but he can't afford to do it weekly, so we're doing it bi-weekly, but we do a longer session.
Okay, yeah. So
there's a ways and means around it, but I think that could be a misconception about us charging for it. There's a reason for that, because I'm not a charity. I'm a business.
Yeah.
I have the rent to pay. I've got the overheads to pay. The world's going more expensive.
Your NAC membership isn't cheap.
No, the NAC membership is not cheap at all in the slightest. Wages have gone. The world has gone up. Everything has gone up around it. So I can't just sit and go, oh no, we're not gonna. Well, I mean, I'd love to give it out. I say this to you all the time, didn't I?
We say it to our clients as well.
I would love to give it you for free, but we don't live in a world where I can, sadly.
Absolutely.
And there's not enough funding, I don't think, for centres to offer that either.
There are countries in the world that make that possible, and it's something we're just not good at in the UK.
No.
I believe that in France, the state picks up the bill for contact. Singapore are amazing.
And I actually kind of agree with that, because we give you a £500 budget, don't we, when you go mediation? The government give you that, and they go, come on, like, we actually want you to try and resolve this, but we're not prepared to give you any more financial support.
Where I struggle with this is that if you say you don't work, you're on benefits, you're on SPIP or whatever it may be, you're instantly priced out, aren't you?
Yeah.
You are literally priced out of having a relationship with your child.
Yeah.
How can we live in a society whereby you are only allowed to have a relationship with your child if you're able to pay for it?
And it wouldn't take much, would it, realistically? I know the government stretched and everything, but for the Ministry of Justice to almost create even if they funded it on legal aid, do you know what I mean? If they created, a bit like the child, like nursery settings get so much paid by the government. If the government turned around and went, let's give you a set amount, like I said, it could be a legal aid rate, for instance. You meet that criteria, we're going to let you see your child. I know that means that the government have got to find that money, but you're encouraged to go to these services. You are asked not to go to court. Realistically, we're asking you to resolve these things without going to court. Like, court is always a last resort option when we advise our clients, unless there's an emergency or there is no other way forward. Why aren't we helping people?
Somebody cleverer than me, an academic or someone, they could probably argue that the government picking up that bill now is cheaper than the cost of not picking it up, because the cost of not picking it up is schools, mental health, youth services, hospitals, health, the prison service, all of those services, they're picking up the cost of us not supporting families properly.
Which is ridiculous, isn't it?
Yeah.
And it kind of goes back to what you did with I love talking to you about your ACEs stuff. Of actually, is it something that they could be funding now that stops them from like harming adults then potentially and creating like criminals for something in the future, or repeating the same thing that they their family also then separated and were going through a contact centre because that's all they know.
Yeah.
Could we, like you said, could the government nip that in the bud now and think about it long term, future wise?
I think we're not good as a society at counting how many people didn't go to prison, counting how many didn't get severe mental health problems, counting how many weren't arrested. I think because you can't count what didn't happen, it's very hard to measure the impact of things. How do you kind of measure the impact, the longer term impact of a child contact centre? Because you can't say how many of those children that used a child contact centre would have gone to prison or had poor outcomes had they not have done. Yeah. It's really tricky, but we do know all of this stuff. There's research that shows this stuff. It's just really hard to evidence it on the ground. It's really hard to show that impact in a meaningful way that is going to open up that funding.
Yeah, absolutely. The government aren't going to give it out willy-nilly either.
No, absolutely. So, without breaching confidentiality, because obviously that's a big part of what we do, what kind of stories stay with you the most from what you've experienced in your time?
I came across one scenario whereby I was aware of a young person whose parents had separated, I think they had separated with very little, if any, professional involvement at all. Somehow they came up with the idea of writing a parenting plan. Not only had they written this plan, but their 15-year-old daughter had a copy of this plan. So she knew how the separation was going to happen, how her parents were going to work together, what the future was going to look like. She knew, at the point I became aware of this scenario, Christmas was 6-7 months away. She knew where Dad was going to be Christmas Day. She knew the fact that Dad was paying the bills, blah, blah, blah. There was lots of stuff that she knew. Now, you could argue that it's not the place of a 15-year-old to know that stuff. But what I found was a 15-year-old who felt very safe. Mm-hmm. She felt very reassured. And the anxiety that did exist wasn't about the Christmas in 6 or 7 months' time. It was about the Christmas after, because they hadn't written that in the plan. So it was a lovely... We hark on about parenting plans all the time, about communication, about putting your children's needs first. But to actually learn of a young person whose parents had done that, and to see the impact of that's magic. That's what we're here for. That's why we exist.
I do think that's important, is that I think maybe letting them know that Dad's paying the bills might be a bit too much in that one. But like, do you think there is a big thing in knowing where you're going to be each weekend, what you will be doing? Like, that's quite a stable environment for a child, isn't it? Like, I knew I was seeing my dad every other weekend, how half terms work, how Christmas worked, and that worked.
There was lots
we
of...
knew where we were coming, going,
Absolutely.
all of that sort of stuff. So that I think there was a really strong point that children should know.
There was lots of change in her world, but it was very predictable and very safe.
Okay.
Yeah, they don't like change, do they?
No.
It freaks them out.
Yeah,
No, I don't like change either. Like, that would freak me out.
Neither do I.
Well, can you imagine, without can you imagine James being like, and your parents separated, not knowing where, if he was going to your dad's or your mum's, like, he'd hate it, wouldn't he?
Yeah.
Realistically, like because he just does. Well, you're not too bad with change. Mark would freak out completely.
I don't like big changes.
No, that's true. Yeah, that's true.
I like knowing where I am.
Yeah, fair. But like, who doesn't realistically?
Well, yeah,
like,
exactly.
We've got an online calendar, haven't we?
Yeah.
With it all in, and this is not me to like. I'm not going to brag, and I'm not being sponsored or anything by that. But our Family Wizard, I think, hit that really well with their app, in that there's a child section on it, and the child can have access to the calendar. They can know where they're going, and
which I think is really important. It goes back to ensuring their wishes and feelings are being heard. And
absolutely, and I think
ensuring
it goes
those
back
involved.
to like there are resources out there that families don't know about potentially that can actually support them in this process, and that's what we're here for. Like, scream and shout, we can signpost you to them.
Yeah, and that kind of leads on then into the next question, which was what impact can positive contact arrangements have on children long term?
Yeah.
So obviously from your story there, it's obviously...
You can kind of unwind everything I've just said. You know what I mean? A contact centre that is working with a family in a planned, risk-assessed way for 3 to 6 months, helping those parents to learn to communicate, to learn to trust each other, and then moving on. The impact of that is that child lives in an environment whereby conflict is minimised, whereby adults are able to communicate, whereby they feel safe, where their life is predictable, where their needs are known and understood, and they feel safe and comfortable expressing their needs. That's the impact. Yeah. That's what we're here for. That's what the world looks like when contact centres do their jobs properly.
Yeah. So kind of going back to what we were saying before about like the living crisis and the costs and the funding and all of that. Do you think contact centres are facing funding pressures and also staffing pressures?
Yeah, there are no end of pressures in every direction.
Yeah.
Contact centres, the profit between what they take and what they take home is tiny. The difference there's not a lot of profit in this sector. Those services that are profit making are not going to be eligible for funding. They can't increase their costs much more because people can't afford to pay it, but the world around them continues to become more and more expensive. For those who are not profit making organisations, there might be funding opportunities available. Those funding opportunities are significantly less now than ever they were, and they're typically for project-based work rather than being able to go into a general pot of money to support the cash flow of the charity or the organisation. So, yeah, is the answer. There's not a lot of funding available at all. There's not even a lot of commissioned work anymore. A lot of commissioned work, a lot of contracts tend to be on a spot purchase basis, so you don't even get that security. When you are on those contracts, those organisations aren't always good at paying, particularly local authorities. They have this habit of letting bills mount up to tens of thousands of pounds before they pay. Now that's fine for them because it probably fits with the tax year or something. It works lovely for them. But you imagine being a contact centre your size where you've got a couple of staff, a building to pay for. That's money you need in your bank account. You can't tell your staff to hang on for 2 months so you can pay them. You need that money at the time you offer that service.
Yeah.
And that's
a big thing we have to do.
it's a huge challenge. Yeah.
Constantly chasing local authorities for invoicing, aren't we? And I think you're like, I don't know, and I can't speak for other contact centres, but like every year knowing when big things are coming, like obviously we know the cost of living was going to happen, we know things were going on. I'm very good, and I don't know if that's my lawyer world as well that we live in. I know the budget's coming, I know what's going to change. I plan my costings around that, like to the T with my other director. I couldn't tell you right now, but I've got it written down. I could tell you, if I went and got that piece of paper, to the minute what it cost us to run the centre. But then people don't realise that, and I think it goes back to that misconception of you're doing this for money. No, actually I'm not. Believe me, like we're not. Yeah. It is. I think we made £300 profit last year. We're not.
Doesn't surprise me.
We're not. We don't make huge profit at all. I do this job because I love it, and I help. Yeah, absolutely. Given the environment that I work in, I'm a family lawyer. I've always wanted to be a family lawyer. It is so satisfying going into these contacts and being able to sit and watch these families have that hour, which doesn't sound a lot, but that hour together, particularly when you haven't got, I don't know, like parents might not have seen their children for a year and they come running in and give them that, it's magic, the most incredible experience ever. I do it because I like it. I don't do it for the profit that comes out of it, and I think that's the biggest misconception for me that I see. Or feel, maybe.
No,
to
that's
answer
definitely
your question
one
that you asked earlier. Yeah.
I've heard people say, I think it was these dads groups kind of 10 or 15 years ago when there was a lot of toxic stuff happening within those groups. But I've heard conversations around how disgusting it is that private enterprises would profit from the trauma and misery of families. And that's not what's happening.
No,
that is so far from the reality.
Absolutely.
And if there wasn't a private sector delivering contact in this country,
be having it.
There probably wouldn't be contact.
No, I completely agree.
Because a lot of these services, they're not financially viable in any other way because of all the pressures that I've just spoke about in terms of charities, not least the fact one of the most common problems at the moment is the security around buildings and tenancies.
Yeah.
These challenges are all just too big for most charitable organisations. So we have a diverse mixture in this country of people who provide contact services, and that's lovely and it works really well. But if you take out one part of that puzzle, it's like a Jenga board, the whole lot will come tumbling. We need what we've got and the way it currently works.
And I think you going back to what you said about the funding and things, having spoken to like other charities, because not all, like you said, I'm a limited company, but actually some of them are charities. People aren't funding into charities like they were. So like you're not, because of the cost of living and everything going up, we're living quite a scary world, aren't we, at the moment, where everything is just going up and up and up and up. People aren't prepared to just give away their money anymore. Like, people were prepared, like companies were prepared to go, do you know what, actually, whether that be for tax purposes or whatever they wanted to give it to, they were like, we'll give you some of this for, you've asked for it, or like charities themselves have pots of money, don't they, that sit and they can go, well, look, we can allocate you to, it's not happening, the money's not there, it's just not there so I really hope it doesn't affect people going forward, because I know like Colin in Abergavenny, he's running a great service, he does it for free, I don't know if he's charging for a supervised services now. He's not. And amazing.
I am 100% sure he is the only supervised contact centre in the country offering a free service.
And that's incredible, isn't it?
It's
That is
immense.
so, his waiting
It's
list
immense.
must be huge, to be honest.
Not least because they only deliver supervised contact on a Saturday.
Yeah, every other
So
week, I think.
yeah,
as well.
the waiting list will be huge.
But like, what it must.
It's
like,
spectacular that he's able to
fantastic
do
that
it.
he's able to do it. Do you know, I admire that. But I can't say I am in the same position. Like I said, if I could give it for free, I would. I really would.
Yeah. Then moving completely
Yeah.
on a separate point. What would you say to separate parents who are struggling to co-parent constructively?
I would ask them to put themselves in the shoes of their children. Not physically, because that's going to hurt, but just take a moment to think about what all of this feels like. And we've talked about it a lot here today, and when I say to put themselves in their children's shoes, what I would hate actually is for parents to hurt themselves with that knowledge. The relationships come to an end, that's really sad. That doesn't make you a bad parent. The fact that this has happened doesn't mean that your children are going to have really rubbish life experiences and that you've done really bad things. All of that stuff, that might be what the demons are telling you, but the reality of the situation is that your children can thrive, even living within a separated family. But in order for them to thrive, they need parents who are emotionally attuned to them. They need parents where they feel safe to talk about their worries, their concerns, their difficulties, their problems. It needs to be acceptable for a child to have a photo of dad on their bedside cabinet at mum's house. That needs to be okay, that needs to be normal. Because that child loves that dad, and the fact that they're at mum's house doesn't mean that love goes away.
Yeah.
We really need to normalise the separation that happens and children's experiences of that, so that children are able to thrive. Because what children need ultimately is parents who can communicate about their needs, and communicating by WhatsApp or by Our Family Wizard or any other way is better than arguments, conflict, trouble, or just not communicating at all.
Absolutely. And like I said, going back to what we said earlier, we're not asking you to be best friends, are we, at all? But to co-parent, where like you've had a child, you just work together somehow, whether that be the most minimal contact that it is at all. It's better than nothing.
If you can communicate via WhatsApp and sit at opposite ends of the same room comfortably, that's probably just about enough, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
That's probably enough to get you through a wedding or a graduation.
100%. Like I'm not asking you to sit by them. Like go, you know, like when you go to a school concert, you can sit there and one can sit over there. But if you can do that, imagine how happy your child is going to be with you doing that.
And what I'd say within that is, certainly during the early days when everybody's hurting, keep that communication about the child. You don't need to be talking about things that are likely to be emotion laden, that are likely to create difficulties. Those things can be resolved later down the line. But if you're sharing information about your child for now, then I've said it several times, but the one thing you have in common, even if everything else has changed, is that child. And that is enough communication for the time being. Everything else can be built on. It probably wouldn't need to be built, and it'd probably happen organically.
Yeah.
If there was a starting point, the rest would probably happen in time.
I think this does lead on to our next question. It's kind of similar, but it's more of a, what do you think the most important things listeners should understand about children experiencing family breakdown?
I think it goes back to the points we were making before about the changes that are happening in their world. The fact that teachers aren't trained to know or to recognise this or to know how to respond. The fact that a lot of early help services that might have reached families in the communities kind of now don't exist. So it's about recognising once we come into contact with these families, our impact is huge because there are less and less people having an impact. So what we do and what we stand for, what we believe in, what we practice has to be really meaningful. We have to be doing things with purpose to be helping these families to move forward and to make the best of whatever their future looks like.
No, I agree. And then my last question, but then I'm happy to like talk if you've got any more questions after, is if you could change one thing about the current system tomorrow, what would it be?
The first thing I would change is that the state pick up the bill for contact
Oh yeah.
in a heartbeat.
Mm-hmm.
Because we know last year 24,000 children came through NAC accredited contact centres. The best statistics that are available tell us that 1 million families a year separate. Where are those other children?
Yeah.
Are they safe? Are they protected? Is their needs being met? If the answer to those questions is yes, then great, keep them away from contact centres. But we need to be sure of that.
Yeah.
We need to be sure that the cost of having a loving relationship with both of your parents isn't so prohibitive that it becomes impossible.
Yeah.
I don't know how we've let ourselves as a society get into that situation, because our neighbours in France don't work in that way.
No.
Singapore have great models. A lot of the world has different ways of working, but I worry that those that are most vulnerable, there is no safety net there.
No.
There's nothing
There
to
probably
catch
isn't,
them.
and we don't, like you said, like you're doing it off what you know statistically reported, what's happening to those
Yeah.
that aren't or are still being expected to potentially have unsafe contact
Yeah.
with their parent. Because we were talking about it yesterday, weren't we, about being in like a domestic abuse family. You may not know as a child that that's actually wrong, because that's
Of
all
course.
you know.
Of course.
And
That's your
it's-
normal, isn't
That's
it?
your normal,
Yeah.
absolutely. That's your normal family. But actually, what we're doing, if we're not picking up these families, is we are essentially repeating that that's okay for the next generation, and it's just we're not breaking the cycle of.
And I guess we have to be aware that it's never acceptable for children to be exposed to domestic abuse. Let's get that out there first. But if that's your normal, then there's a level of safety within that, because
Yeah.
it's predictable. You see
Yeah.
the patterns of behaviours, you see the way your parents interact with one another. It's scary, it's distressing, but you know how it plans out. You know how it escalates, you know how it de-escalates. It's going to be all right.
Yeah.
Once separation ends and children aren't being exposed to that anymore, there's that dynamic too, isn't there?
Yeah.
The safety that comes with parents separating can potentially be incredibly unsafe to them, because
Yeah.
that level of predictability is taken away.
Absolutely, and I think we forget as well that children in that environment have, and I know we focus on a lot of domestic abuse, but I suppose it works with substance misuse as well, of you've learnt what could trigger
Yeah,
them to fly off. You've learnt what could trigger an alcoholic
absolutely.
episode, and you've learnt to, as a child, how to potentially put up with that, or
Yeah.
you know how to behave so that doesn't trigger that.
Yeah,
Like you said, going back, we are potentially leaving children vulnerably open to those situations in a world where we're well aware of these things as issues now.
Yeah.
That's terrifying. And I think that's another issue. I'm just going to keep talking now because I'm on a roll. About the Pathfinder. I love Pathfinder for cases that aren't complicated and
Yeah.
have simple issues, and it works because it's done what they wanted it to
Do you want
do.
to explain what a Pathfinder is, what you're talking about?
Oh yeah,
for the
I can
listeners
explain
don't
that.
know?
That's a fair point. So the Pathfinder is the new pilot. It's now actually all in Wales. It's now slowly being introduced into England. The Pathfinder was a new court system that's been introduced, where the government have basically introduced this new system where they're trying to get people through the court system quicker,
Yeah.
speedily, to avoid costs, to avoid time, because the whole point is that children shouldn't be. It's the timely, I can't remember what section it is, but these things should be dealt with in a timely manner. Yeah. So what they've tried to do is go away with how the old court system worked was you had your first hearing, another hearing, and your final hearing, and probably any odd hearing that went on in between, because let's be honest, most families do have issues that require more. What they've done now with a Pathfinder is a judge or a legal advisor is picking up your application. He is reading it on paper. They're still having a hearing, but you don't have to attend that hearing. They're asking for all the information from the get-go so that they can kind of get the directions going without you having to be there in court. So 9 times out of 10, most of them go for a child impact report, but which is great, like I said, in cases that have low, minimal risk issues. However, I am finding as a lawyer, it just does not work for those higher risk families, that they're still being made to put on their system, and you're having to make an application, after application after application after application for a judge to read it in an unattended hearing and go, oh, actually, yeah, we do need to do a fact find hearing, we need to do this. No, sorry, that should have been done from the beginning when I put my C1A in. But the point I was trying to make was I think that's having an impact on contact centres as well, because you're not having that time anymore to allow contact potentially in between.
Sure.
I found that I think we in Wales, I think Brecon has been impacted by that process. Hereford's not so bad because they're still kind of in this system where it's being piloted. We're not quite there yet, but it's being trialled and introduced, and it's going back to the funding issue. We're not needed because people aren't using us because they're trying to, which is great, and the whole purpose of it, isn't it? But actually there are families that need it. There are families that need that service, and we can't be ignored.
And there are difficulties around being able to deliver a service within a Pathfinder timescale. Because, I mean, in England, they offer 3 sessions of contact because that's as many as you can fit in to write a Section 7 report. But 3 sessions of contact to build a relationship with a parent that you haven't seen for months, that you've heard really scary things about, that you remember really scary things about, that your mum cried on the way to taking you to the contact session because she's so distressed by all of this, and you've got 3 lots of 1 hour to build a relationship with them.
Just doesn't work. It does not work.
Doesn't fit. It doesn't fit with any model of child development that I've ever known.
No, I agree. And like I said, I love it. I think it is the way forward in us trying to keep people out of court or reduce it. It just doesn't work in these higher risk cases, personally. But then no, I've got no more questions unless you've got any. Unless you would like to talk about anything, Phil, whilst we're here in front of the camera.
I'm all good.
No? Have you got any questions, Ben?
No, none from me.
No, that's fine. But yeah, thank you very much for coming on,
problem.
Phil.
Lovely to speak
It was
to
lovely
you.
to speak to you.
It's
So
been good to
nice
be
to
here.
hear. So thank you for coming down.
Good to come down as well. You're in a beautiful part of the world.
We love it here, don't we?
Yeah.
Absolutely. Thank you very much.
No problem.